Schools, with their long, echoing corridors and silent classrooms, have always been fertile ground for spooky tales. They are places where young minds, brimming with imagination, often encounter the unexplained. These are the stories whispered among students, passed down through generations. Stories that send shivers down your spine and make you question the darkness lurking just beyond your vision. The old gymnasium stood silent, shrouded in darkness. It had been years since it had seen the light of day, its once vibrant walls now cloaked in a thick layer of dust and neglect. Moonlight filtered through the dusty windows, casting an ethereal glow that seemed to breathe life into the shadows. The light created long, eerie shadows across the basketball court, making the familiar space feel alien and foreboding. 5 teenagers, giddy with the thrill of being out past curfew, had snuck in for a late-night game. Their laughter echoed off the walls, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that had settled in the gym for so long. They hadn't noticed the janitor's warning glance, the way his eyes had lingered on them with a mix of concern and something else, something darker. The way he'd clutched his keys a little tighter as he locked the heavy gym doors. Now, they were trapped, oblivious to the fact that they had crossed a threshold into the unknown.
The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural stillness. It was as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. A basketball bounced once, twice, then silence. The sound seemed to hang in the air, amplifying the eerie quiet that followed. A cold draft swirled around our ankles, raising goosebumps despite the summer heat. It was a chill that seemed to seep into our very bones. The draft was inexplicable, a cold wind in a place that should have been stiflingly hot. It felt like a whisper from another world.
Whispers seemed to emanate from the bleachers, faint and indistinct. We huddled closer, our laughter dying in our throats as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Our laughter died in our throats, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Gym, once a place of fun and games, had become a prison of fear.
Then, the lights flickered. It was a brief, almost imperceptible flicker, but it was enough to send our hearts racing. A high-pitched whine pierced the silence, a sound so sharp and sudden it felt like it could shatter glass. Followed by the grinding of metal on metal, a sound that seemed to come from the very bowels of the building. The scoreboard, untouched, suddenly sprang to life. Its lights flickered and flashed, casting an eerie glow that bathed the gym in an otherworldly light. Numbers flashed, nonsensical and rapid, as if trying to convey a message they couldn't understand. Panic seized them, their bravado crumbling in the face of the inexplicable.
We rattled the doors, our hands shaking with desperation. The doors, once so easily opened, now felt like barriers to our freedom. Our shouts echoed unanswered in the vast emptiness, the sound bouncing off the walls and returning to us as if mocking our plight. We were found huddled in the center of the court the next morning, pale and shaken. The night had taken its toll, leaving us with a fear that would never fully fade.
The doors were unlocked, the lights working perfectly. It was as if the events of the night had been a collective nightmare, a shared hallucination. The janitor swore he'd found the gym empty, the doors bolted from the inside. His confusion mirrored our own, adding another layer to the mystery. The doors bolted from the inside, a detail that defied explanation. How had we been locked in, and by whom? But the basketball, they would later recall, lay abandoned near the half-court line. It was a silent witness to the night's events, a reminder of the terror we had faced. And the scoreboard, though reset, still hummed faintly with an unseen energy. It was as if the gym itself had a heartbeat, a pulse that echoed the fear we had felt. The teenagers never returned to the gym, their youthful bravado replaced by a chilling fear. The place that had once been a playground was now a haunted memory. Their youthful bravado replaced by a chilling fear. They would often look over their shoulders, haunted by the memory of that night. The memory of that night, of the unseen presence that had toyed with them, lingered. It was a shadow that followed them, a ghost that refused to be forgotten. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some mysteries best left unsolved, some silences best left undisturbed. The gymnasium, once a place of joy and laughter, had become a silent sentinel guarding its secrets in the dark. The abandoned wing of Northwood High had been off limits for decades. It was a place shrouded in mystery and fear, a relic of the past that no one dared to enter. Dust-covered desks sat in rows, illuminated by slivers of moonlight that pierced the boarded-up windows. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was almost deafening. Mr. Harris, the history teacher with a penchant for theatrics and a cruel sense of humor, decided it was the perfect setting for a prank. He had always enjoyed scaring his students, but this time, he wanted to take it to the next level. He led his class of unsuspecting seniors on a field trip, promising a lesson they'd never forget. The students, eager for a break from their usual routine, followed him with a mix of excitement and trepidation. He ushered them into the shadowy corridor, his voice echoing eerily in the stillness. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the temperature dropped noticeably.
"This wing," he announced, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "is said to be haunted by the ghost of a student who disappeared here years ago." Students exchanged nervous glances, their bravado starting to wane.
Nervous giggles rippled through the group, their bravado a thin veil over their growing unease. They tried to laugh it off, but the fear in their eyes was unmistakable. Mr. Harris, relishing their fear, launched into a dramatic retelling of the disappearance. He described the student in vivid detail, painting a picture of a young life cut tragically short. As his story reached its climax, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the end of the hallway. The sound was so real, so visceral that it sent shivers down their spines. The students froze, their blood turning to ice. They looked to Mr. Harris for reassurance, but he seemed just as startled as they were.
"Just a prank, kids, who's messing around?" He tried to sound confident, but his voice wavered.
But his words were drowned out by a chorus of terrified screams. The students were no longer laughing, they were genuinely scared. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of mildew and decay. It felt as if the walls themselves were closing in, suffocating them. Shadows seemed to writhe on the walls, taking on grotesque shapes. The students' imaginations ran wild, each one seeing something different, something terrifying. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the hallway, slow and deliberate, accompanied by the rattling of chains. The sound grew louder, closer with each passing second.
We fled, scrambling over each other in our terror, our cries for help swallowed by the oppressive silence of the abandoned wing. It was every man for himself, and the fear was palpable.
We burst out into the night, gasping for breath, our clothes torn, our faces etched with terror. The relief of being outside was overwhelming, but the fear lingered.
Mr. Harris, however, was never found. His disappearance added a new layer of mystery to the already haunted wing. The abandoned wing was sealed off permanently, the doors reinforced with steel bars. It became a place of legend, a forbidden zone that no one dared to enter. The students, forever marked by that night, refused to speak of what they had seen or heard. The experience had changed them, leaving them with a lingering sense of dread. The legend of the haunted wing lived on, fueled by whispered rumors and the chilling disappearance of Mr. Harris, a stark reminder that some jokes are best left untold, some places best left undisturbed. The story became a cautionary tale, a warning to future generations about the dangers of meddling with the unknown. The isolation experiment, when silence speaks. The prestigious Blackwood Academy, perched atop a windswept hill, had always been shrouded in an air of mystery. Its towering spires and ancient stone walls seemed to whisper secrets of the past, tales of brilliance and darkness intertwined. In the winter of 1983, that mystery took a sinister turn. The snow-covered grounds and the biting cold added to the Academy's eerie atmosphere, setting the stage for an experiment that would forever alter its legacy. A group of 10 students, handpicked for their academic prowess and mental fortitude, volunteered for an experiment in sensory deprivation. These were the best and the brightest, chosen for their resilience and intellect, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The goal to test the limits of human consciousness in isolation. The researchers sought to understand how the mind copes when stripped of all external stimuli, a question that had fascinated and terrified scientists for decades. The students were housed in individual pods, soundproofed and lightproof, their only connection to the outside world a series of monitors and microphones. These pods, designed to eliminate all sensory input, became their entire universe. The first few days passed without incident. The students maintained their composure, their minds occupied with thoughts and memories, unaware of the creeping dread that would soon envelop them. But as the silence stretched into days, then weeks, their carefully constructed realities began to crumble. The absence of sound, light, and human contact gnawed at their sanity, turning their minds into battlegrounds of fear and confusion. Whispers seeped into their soundproof chambers, faint at first, then growing louder, more insistent. These whispers, products of their own minds, became impossible to ignore, echoing their deepest fears and insecurities. They saw faces peering at them through the darkness, grotesque and distorted. These hallucinations, born from isolation, blurred the line between reality and nightmare, leaving them questioning their own sanity. Their dreams bled into their waking hours, filled with unsettling imagery and a pervasive sense of dread. Sleep offered no respite, as their subconscious minds conjured horrors that felt all too real. One by one, the students began to break down. The isolation, the whispers, the faces in the dark, it all became too much to bear. Their once sharp minds dulled by fear and paranoia. They screamed into the void, their pleas for release met with only silence. The soundproof pods absorbed their cries, leaving them to confront their terror alone. They clawed at the walls of their pods, desperate to escape the horrors their minds had conjured. Their fingernails broke and bled, but the walls remained unyielding, trapping them in their own personal hell. The experiment, deemed too dangerous to continue, was abruptly halted. The researchers, horrified by the results, realized they had pushed the boundaries of human endurance too far. Of the 10 students, only 6 emerged from their pods. They were shadows of their former selves, their minds fractured, their sanity irrevocably shattered. The experience had left them haunted, their eyes reflecting the horrors they had endured. They were shadows of their former selves, their minds fractured, their sanity irrevocably shattered. The experience had left them haunted, their eyes reflecting the horrors they had endured. The remaining 4 were never seen again, their fates a chilling mystery. The academy and the surrounding community were left to wonder what had become of them, their disappearance adding another layer of darkness to the academy's history. The Blackwood Academy closed its doors soon after, the silence of its empty corridors a haunting reminder of the experiment that had pushed the boundaries of human endurance too far. The once prestigious institution now stood as a monument to the dangers of unchecked curiosity and the fragility of the human mind. Conclusion: the lingering echoes. These stories, though fictional, tap into a primal fear of the unknown, of the darkness that lurks at the edges of our perception. They remind us that some places hold a power that defies explanation, a darkness that can leave an indelible mark on the human psyche. Whether mere figments of our imagination or chilling glimpses into a reality beyond our understanding, these tales serve as cautionary reminders. They urge us to question the shadows, to listen to the whispers of our intuition, and to tread carefully in the face of the unknown. For sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are not the ones we readily see, but the ones that lurk in the shadows of our minds, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves.